Do your orchids go from looking like this to a soggy, mushy mess seemingly overnight, and there doesn't seem to be anything you can do about it? You just wish there was a way that you could stop it happening before it even started. What if I told you there was a way? There was a way to prevent it from happening right from the get-go. And not only that, it's almost completely free. You don't have to go running off to the shops to go find fancy chemicals which may or may not be toxic to you and your family. It's completely harmless. It's going to cause no damage to yourself, your pets, or your family, or any of your furniture for that matter. What could this magic product be? Well, something as simple as baking soda. Baking soda can be an amazing weapon in your arsenal in the war against fungal attacks on your orchids, in your home or outside. How does it work and how do we use it? Well, that's the easy part. Let's get straight to it. Remember, don't use baking powder. Use baking soda. Baking powder has got acidifying agents and starches in it that help cause that reaction that's needed for baking, and we don't want that reaction on our orchids. All we want is that pure baking soda. Baking soda is sodium bicarbonate, and you want sodium bicarbonate without any additives. And I can hear you saying, sodium's bad for our orchids. Well, let's get through this all, and once you've watched the whole video, you'll understand the uses of this in the fight against fungus on your orchids. And let's not get confused here. This is just a pretty container that I have to store my baking soda. Keeps it nice and fresh. Baking soda is this fine white powder or fine white crystals. And how are we going to use this on our orchid? We don't just want to be throwing this straight on. Baking soda has a pH of around 8, so we really don't want to get this as it is onto our orchids, because then it can start affecting the nutrient uptake in the roots. We'll get to more on that later. Let's get to showing you how we mix it and why it is so good for our orchids in that fight against fungal attacks. Its alkalinity is one of the key factors that help in the fight against fungal attacks. So what we're going to be doing here is taking a flat teaspoon, not a heaped teaspoon, a flat teaspoon, putting that into a 1 liter container. And basically what we do then is just add in 1 liter of water. I'm just going to go in under so that I can still stir without pouring water all over the show. And we can see how quickly it dissolves into the water, which makes it really, really easy to use. And we can just use it as such. We can just pour that into our spray bottle and spray that onto the leaves of our orchid. What it's going to do is it is going to cause the surface of our leaves to become slightly alkaline. And what happens then is the spores of those fungi that may be hanging around or then be produced by any fungal attack that is on our plant will then not be able to germinate. The spores of fungi really need an acidic environment to be able to germinate. So by causing that little bit of alkalinity on the surface of the leaves, it's going to stop those fungus from germinating, and then they won't be able to reinfect your plant. So is it going to be effective against killing all that fungi that's on your plant already? On things like downy mildew or powdery mildew, it can be partially effective, but other fungal diseases, it's really not going to help kill the fungus totally. It will help reduce the spread of the fungus further on the leaves and perhaps slow down its growth, but it's not going to kill your fungus. This is just going to be a preventative measure. So it's something you're going to be using throughout those periods where your fungal attacks happen the most frequently. But remember, with this being alkaline, it's not something you want to be doing every day. In fact, you probably only want to be using this once every 2 weeks. And then also, again, let me reiterate the fact that you don't want to be pouring this mix into your media itself. Because of the alkalinity, it's going to increase the alkalinity in your media, taking it away from that 5.5 or 6 pH that your orchids prefer or that they need to be able to absorb all those nutrients properly. It will increase the alkalinity, and those nutrients will no longer be available to your plant. Also, what's going to happen is you'll land up with salt buildups in the media, and that then will burn the roots of your plant. So you've got to be very careful and understand what you're doing when you're using baking soda. So just use it as a foliar spray. And how can we supercharge this? Well, we all know that, for one, most of our orchids have waxy leaves. So often what happens when we do spray them, that water just runs straight off. So how can we avoid that from happening? For one, we can just add a drop or two of a liquid soap. Something like a dishwashing soap or something like that. Just a couple of drops of that are then going to act as a surfactant and make that sodium bicarbonate mixture stick onto the leaves better. And we're not spraying until we're having water running all over the show on our orchids. All we're doing is giving a light misting on the top of our orchids. You don't necessarily want to go in underneath the leaves. Preferably, you just want to keep it to the surface. You can do the underspray occasionally, but don't do that too often, because you will land up with a powdery residue of your baking soda, and you don't want that clogging up any of your stomata. So it's best just to use on the top surface of your leaves. And how can we really supercharge this mix? We can use a little bit of oil. We can use either a mineral oil or a cooking oil, just to help with the sticking of the sodium bicarbonate to the leaves. So for one, you're taking off the waxy layer, or you reducing the surface tension of the water so that it can stick to the waxy layer better. And then we're adding an oil that is going to help stick your sodium bicarbonate to the leaves better, so that it doesn't just flush straight off. And to really supercharge your mix, you can use olive oil. Olive oil has oleic acid, it has palmitic and linoleic acid, which all have proven antifungal and antibacterial components to them. So adding a teaspoon of olive oil to your mix is going to really supercharge it. So just adding 1 teaspoon to the mix, and there we go. We see, since we haven't added the soap yet, all that's happening is the oil sitting on top of the water. So just by adding a couple of drops of that detergent in, we can mix it up. And we can get a suspension of that oil with the sodium bicarbonate. Okay, we're not trying to make soapy water here, so please don't go be putting a full teaspoon in of your liquid soaps, as some of these online recipes suggest, because that is going to affect your orchid. You just want it enough to break the surface tension of the water, so you can get a suspension of the oil and the baking soda. We can just fill that up to our liter mark, and there we go. It's really going to be as simple as that. Also, don't go mixing extra ingredients in thinking that the more you put in, the better it's going to be for your orchid, because all you're going to do is start causing further problems. Please keep to the mixing instructions, because more is not always better. And there we go. We can just pour that then into our spray bottle and go around. Find the misting nozzle on your spray and just give a light coating. We don't want this running down into the media and causing it to be more alkaline. Some people think, yes, perhaps to put it into the media to increase the alkalinity of the media if your media is starting to become too acid. But if your media is becoming too acid, remember, it's because your bark or your other ingredients are probably decomposing. And that means you rather need to repot your orchid than trying to ameliorate the acidity of it. Because what's going to happen as that media decomposes, it's going to block all those air gaps. It's going to produce areas where there's anaerobic conditions, and that's where your pathogenic fungi and bacteria are going to thrive, and then you're going to have even bigger problems with your orchid. So don't try and ameliorate your pH of your media if you've got organic media that's starting to get too acidic. Rather repot your orchid. So remember, just a fine spray on the surface of the leaves, and you're A for away. Whoopsie, you can't see my face. Just a fine spray on the surface of your leaf is going to help stop those fungal spores from germinating and reduce the chances of your orchid being infected with fungi at all. So with it being such a friendly, safe, and cheap method, that's what makes it so powerful. And if you need any further explanation on anything that I've covered in this video, please drop it down in the comments box below. Also remember, Ed posts up a lot of orchid-related content in that Buy Me a Coffee link there all the time that's available freely to everyone. Also, don't be shy. Sign up, become a member, and grow like a pro. And if you've found any of this information helpful, please hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and that notification bell, bing bong, to be notified of all our upcoming content so you don't miss out on a thing. Help us grow as we help your orchids grow.